Hi, everybody. Welcome back to KojiCon. It's Sunday night at 9 p.m. here on the East Coast of Connecticut. We are so pleased that you're joining us, and we're sort of officially kicking off week 2 of KojiCon with Jess Alonzo, who's joining us tonight to talk about pickles. So I'll do a quick introduction and we'll get started, and then I'll come back on for questions at the end. Jess Alonzo is the fermentation specialist at Petra and the Beast, which is located in Dallas, Texas. She's the owner of Native Ferments, which provides online and in-person workshops that teach the importance of preservation and whole utilization in commercial kitchens and everyday life. She's focused on supporting local Texas farms and creating complex flavors in every ferment that she makes. And tonight she's sharing a variety of techniques to pickle vegetables inspired by Japanese tsukemono. And so I am pleased to welcome Jess Alonzo to the stream. Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know it was a tricky thing to get scheduled and rescheduled, and I so appreciate you making the time. I know you don't have a lot of it, so your generosity is much appreciated.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you so much for including me, and thank you for all of your hard work and your team and for putting this together. This is really an awesome, just opportunity to be a part of. I mean, Rich is really inspiring, and everyone that I've seen so far is just, filled with information and just really awesome community to be a part of. So I'm really, really excited to be a part of it.
Oh,
So
great.
thank you.
Thank you for that. And just as a note, Jess and I have talked a little bit about the fact that her internet is a little delayed at times, but the audio seems to be catching up, and it's just the video needs to catch up. So I think I just want to make that note at the beginning that we are aware that there is that little delay, but it seems to be working just fine otherwise. So I'm going to go ahead and remove myself and let you get started.
Okay, awesome. All right. So today tonight actually, I'll be going over fermenting and pickling some techniques using koji and sake kasu, and going through some different Japanese tsukemono techniques. But first off, I just want to, I know there's a wide range of participants in KojiCon as far as viewers go. So I wanted to kind of go and dial it back to basics in case, someone is entirely new to fermentation and pickling. I just wanted to make sure that everyone had a basis to kind of jump off of, and they're not completely lost during the whole presentation. So I'm going to start with the two main types of pickling, one being lacto fermentation. And so that means essentially so we're doing a lot of vegetable preserving. So you would take your vegetables and they would either get salted, and with that salt, they would make their own brine, or you would take your vegetables and submerge them in a salt brine solution. One thing to remember that's really important is that you want to make sure you have the correct or high enough salt percentage whenever you're fermenting. Usually when I ferment vegetables, it's anywhere between 2 to 3% is what I like to stay in. If you go lower than that, you can, but essentially you want to have enough salt in there that will kill off any harmful bacteria, and the right salt percentage will allow the lactobacillus bacteria to thrive and actually start converting the natural sugars that are in your vegetables into the lactic acid. And that's that process. And then that lactic acid basically, creates that environment that preserves the vegetables and gives it the tangy flavor that we're looking for. So that's essentially a little rundown of lactic fermentation or lacto fermentation. The other one is more of a quick pickle using a vinegar brine. So there's no fermentation involved during that pickling process. It's pretty easy. Essentially, you're combining some water, a combination of water, vinegar, salt, and sometimes sugar, bringing that up to a boil, and then you're covering your vegetables and quick pickling your vegetables that way. So with no fermentation in that process, you're counting on the salt and mostly the vinegar being the catalyst that's going to change up the texture and the flavor and preserve your vegetables that way. So those are the two main pickling basics. One thing I do want to note, if you are new to lacto fermentation, just to backtrack a little bit, is the type of salt that you're using. That is super important. So you don't want to use any sort of iodized like table salt or any sort of salt that has anti-caking agents. The iodine in salt actually stops the and kills the good bacteria that you want for your lacto fermentation. So we would just want to stay away from that. You want to make sure you're using like a good natural sea salt or Himalayan pink salt. This here, this is a salt I like to use in all of my ferments. This is Redmond salt based out of Utah. So this is unrefined, which means that it has all of its minerals and nutrients. So you can kind of see it has like a brownish pink hue to it. So I just feel like it gives it all the ferments a better flavor because it's more enriched that way. So that's enough about salt. So I'm going to start going into different Japanese tsukemono pickling techniques. I've kind of split it into two different groups. First will be the short-term enhancement sort of pickling or quick pickling in that sense. The first one will be shiokoji. In that, I know we've already had a presentation, and they did an amazing job, and they did awesome stuff. I just kind of wanted to give a few examples of some quick marinating and pickling with using shiokoji. This here is a black lime shiokoji that I made. And then the finished product here is a Texas collards that I fermented with the black lime shiokoji and mustard seeds. And then I did about a 2% salt in this because I had to account for the shio that I was adding in. So this is really aromatic, kind of sour, sweet, and then you have the bitterness from the black lime that really comes through. It's really, really tasty. So that's that. The next one here, I guess you can go back and say, just a little recap on shiokoji if you've missed the previous presentation. To make shiokoji, you do 1 part koji, 1 part water, and then you that combined, you take 5% of that total weight and add salt. So it's 5% of that total weight is salt. And then that's fermented for about 5 to 7 days at room temp, and you leave the jar top just slightly open so it has released that CO2, and you make sure you stir it. And then usually about after 5 to 7 days, it's ready to go and you can use. In this case, instead of using water, we had a lot of leftover half sour brine. So I ended up subbing the water component with half sour brine. So I then had to adjust my salt percentage, which would normally be 5%, but I did only 4 in this case to account for the salt that's already in the lactic half sour brine. So I've just quickly marinated some slices of green tomato here. It's really, really good. It tastes like a half sour pickle, a little salty, and then the just nice crunchy green tomato texture. So it's really nice. I'm really happy with that. And then, so another little tidbit to remember about shiokoji. So with that, we know we have two main enzymes that are working together when you're pickling. One of those is the protease enzyme, which works on the proteins and breaks those down into amino acids. And then you have the amylase, which works with the starches and breaks that down into sugar. So that's always something to kind of keep in mind when you're pickling your vegetables. So another short-term enhancement would be amazake. I have a couple of pickles here, just examples. I won't demo how to make amazake. Jeremy did an amazing presentation all about amazake, and I'll just kind of do a little rundown again. So we have two different types that you'll mostly be using whenever you're pickling. You have sweet amazake and sour amazake. So with sweet amazake, you're still going to do your ratio of 1 part cooked rice or starch, 1 part koji, and then 2 parts water. And then that gets held at 140 Fahrenheit for about 10 to 14 hours or overnight. And that's usually blended. So you have this nice sweet porridge-like substance to pickle in. And then you also have your sour amazake, which is going to be looser because those ratios will be you still your 1 part cooked starch or rice, anything you're trying to use there, and then 1 part koji. And this time you're going to double the ratio for water, so it'll be 4 parts water. But the other process, it's still at 140 for 10 to 14 hours. You'll pull that, and then you'll keep it at room temp and let it ferment further for about 3 to 5 days. Usually in our climate, it takes about 3 days. It's just a little hotter here. So it's just, if we let it go here a little bit longer, we're here in Texas, so it's hot and humid even this weekend, and we're February. So usually a shorter ferment time for us usually works out. But just you can see a little, it's a little really like liquefied here. But just I have a couple of examples. So this is an example of a sweet amazake pickle. This I actually made out of burnt oats. So it's a sweet burnt oat amazake. And then here you'll see I've pickled some thumbelina carrots in that. So it's sweet. It's got kind of a little bitterness, a little coffee note. And then you get the sweetness of the carrots, which is really nice. All right. As far as a sour amazake pickle, this one here, so I took maitake mushroom scraps and pickled them in a combination of, so when I made the amazake, instead of doing 4 parts water, I actually used 4 parts of a mushroom stem amino that I had made. The golden like liquid part of it, I just pulled it from the top and made the sour amazake with the mushroom amino. So these are like crazy good, just umami bombs. They're sour, they're beefy, they're sort of It like tastes like a coffee and a sour raisin. It's pretty insane, pretty intense. Really happy with those. But yeah, so that's what I have for amazake and short-term enhancement pickles. Take some water. Continuing on with the tsukemono pickles here. One of the really popular ones and pretty common pickles in Japan are what is called a berazuke, which is a pickle daikon. It actually combines both a sweet amazake and a shiokoji, and then a little bit of sake. So for that pickling, I guess brine or bed, you would take this is again sweet, 2 cups of sweet amazake that has been blended. You'll get that in there. So it's 2 cups to sweet amazake to 1 cup of shiokoji. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sake here. And a nickname for these pickles is a sticky pickle, which I thought was funny. But you'll see why. Because typically when you're using pickling beds or anything like that in Japanese cuisine, the vegetables are usually salted for a couple days and pressed. But with this technique, it's actually, they skip that part. So in this case, what you would do, you would take your daikon and just put those and make sure they were covered and let those sit at room temp for about 3 to 5 days, depending on how hot or cold, or just your taste, your preference, really, how sweet or sour you would like. But I have some here that are already done. You can see they're still crunchy. They are sticky. They're sweet, a little bit of salty, but definitely have the crunch and texture. And I let these go 3 days. And you can reuse these. Here, sorry.
Just, I'm popping in for just a second while you take a sip of water.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. There was like one little glitch where I couldn't hear. You said there was a nickname for the pickles, and then it glitched out, so I couldn't hear the name of the pickles.
Oh, sticky pickles.
That's what I thought. Okay, sticky pickles. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is our berazuke daikon, which is super popular in Japan. You go ahead and move on here. So another variation of a pickling bed is a sogahache or sogahache zuke, which is what we'll be making, which is the pickle. And essentially that is a pickling bed that is made with 3 parts salt, 5 parts koji, and then 8 parts of cooked rice. So the reason I just learned this a few days ago, actually. So in Japanese, 3 is san, 5 is go, and then 8 is hachi. So sagahachi zuke makes total sense now. But in this case, I won't demo the whole process of making it, but I'll just walk you through. This bed here I made with a sorghum, a toasted sorghum koji. So it gives it a really interesting flavor. So basically, I take the koji, the salt, and the cooked rice. I placed it in a jar, and then fermented it for about 8 to 10 hours at 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I pulled it. I let it cool to room temp, and then put it in the fridge for a couple of days and let it chill out. And then pulled it and started pickling with it. So this is one that I've already made. And then you would just kind of tuck these guys in here and cover them. And then usually you can leave these in here for about 3 to 5 days. And then just keep it, when you're done, just keep it in the fridge and it'll stay for a few weeks. But yeah, so the sagahachi is 3 parts salt, 5 parts koji, and 8 parts rice. So here's that. Okay, so that is what I have as far as the short-term pickles for tsukemono. Now we're going to go into more of the long-term enhancement pickles. And what I mean by that is like miso, which we learned if you watched Kirsten's awesome presentation, is an amino paste. So the composition there would be koji, your protein base, salt, and thyme, which is why it would fall under the long-term enhancement. So it's essentially a high protein paste that's fermented over time, and the enzymes end up breaking down into amino acids. So there are variations that you can do, different ratios for a shorter term miso, like a 2 to 3 month miso. You would need a higher koji and lower salt percentage for those. And then if you wanted to use a 6 month to a 2 month or 2 year miso, you would then have to go into the higher protein base and higher salt percentage to help protect the ferment from going bad over time. So my next demo will be the miso zuke bed or miso doko. I've seen multiple, let me just grab these. So multiple recipes and things like that that you can use. The one that I like to season my miso zuke bed. And you don't have to. It's up to your preference, really. So for mine, I also like to do a combination of a young miso and an older aged miso. So for my bed, I usually will do this is just for demo purposes, but it's 270 grams of the younger miso, which this here is a creamer pea, a Texas creamer pea miso that's about 3 months old. And then here we have, you can even see the difference in the color. It's way darker. So this is actually a charred, milk bread miso that's like 1.5 years now. So I like to do a combination of both. 270 grams of the young miso, and then 135 grams of the older, and then usually around a tablespoon or 2 of sake. And then I like to flavor the bed with some dried chilies, a couple pieces of kombu, and some, like about a teaspoon of grated ginger. So I'll just go ahead and put this, mix this up a little bit. Let me grab. Can you hear that? So I just want to make sure both misos are nice and combined and mixed together here. But one important thing to remember whenever you're using a miso zuke or miso doko bed, this is usually when you would dry or salt and press your vegetables for at least 2 days. I like to do that. Here I have some turnips that have been salted and pressed. That just extracts some of the moisture because you don't want your pickling bed to get too watery, essentially. So because they can get reused, can reuse these up to like 3 or 4 times. So you would just, here's kombu. Got to mix these in. So you're basically just going to be burying your vegetables in here. And the pickling time is really up to your preference. Once you've tasted the pickling bed and, if you want your pickle to be really light, then you can just do it for a few hours. Or if you want it to be super strong and aggressive, you would let it go for a couple days. Again, it's really up to personal preference. But oh, I forgot sake. Okay, we'll just let that hang out for a couple days. And then once you're done, once you've pulled your pickles, you can just keep this in the fridge for a few weeks and it'll totally be fine. So for my next demonstration, I'm going to show you guys how to create a kasazuke bed. So if you guys don't know, sake kasu or sake lees is a byproduct of the sake production. So to make sake, you essentially rice is inoculated with koji spores, and then the koji and the enzymes break the starches down into sugar, and then yeast is added, and then the yeast converts the sugars into alcohol, which we get sake. So usually after I think it's about a month or so after that process has taken place, the rice mash is pressed. The sake is basically strained out, and what we're left with is basically sheets or paste, and that is the sake lees, which is still full of vitamins and nutrients, and used for a lot of different in the kitchen, as far as in baking, in pickling, obviously. Also, I think a lot of people in Japan actually use them for cosmetic products as well. But I'll be showing you how to make a kasazuke bed. This one here is one that I have a smoked Calabrian chilies pickling in. These have been going for about 2 months. So it, I like for my kasazukes, my kasazuke pickles to go on a little longer and be a longer ferment. I tend to stay away from the short pickling process with these. But so grab. So this kasu actually came in sheets, and I've just broken them up here. And the ratio that you would use to make your kasu bed would be 10 parts kasu to 3 parts sugar and 1 part salt. And then you can either use sake or water, if you don't have sake, to kind of break it apart into more of a paste, which I have here. So I'm just going to combine sugar and salt, sake. And once you've used your kasazuke bed or kasu bed, you can reuse it. After this 3rd time, I wouldn't recommend using it again. One cool thing to do is to dehydrate it, and you can use it as a seasoning. Be really good. Just add a little bit more sake. Well, it's getting pretty close, starting to form a paste, which is what we want. Break it down a little bit more. Just add a little bit more sake. There we go. I really enjoy one also really cool sort of byproduct that comes off of these kasu beds. It's sort of like a mirin, essentially, that you can siphon off. If you can, I'll get this going and then show you guys how. But you can see that consistency. You have a paste, and you're just essentially going to layer your bed. So you would do a layer of kasu, then your veg, kasu, veg, until everything was nice and covered. And then you can put a piece of plastic wrap on top, and then a weight that will help, just like with miso, would help, like you would have tamari on the top of your miso. In this case, it's sort of like a mirin, but you can kind of see in between these bubbles here, they have mirin from the kasu and the chilies bubbling up, which is really nice. So one other variation of this kasu bed is called a Kirishizuke, which is essentially you're taking your kasu bed and adding a spicy, like spicy Japanese mustard to the actual mixture. I don't have the bed with me, but you would do this essentially, and then I did about for this recipe, I added about 50 grams of mustard, and then I just pickled these turnips in here. These have gone for about 2 months. They're really, really nice. They're a little spicy, yellow because of the mustard, and a little salty and a little sweet. So really, really nice. So that concludes the my tsukemono presentation. Jen, what's our time for questions?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. We're good on time for questions, and there's quite a few in the that have been sent in already. So I might just start, if I can just start going from the top down. Does that work?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So the first question is from Taylor, and Taylor's asking, what are the percentages of shio that go into the pickles? Is it based around getting to a total of 3% salt level?
So like when I'm making the shio koji, is that what he's asking?
He said when you make the, it's the percentages of shio that goes into the pickles.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I try and have at least a 3% salt percentage with all of my pickles. So yes, that would be it.
Okay, great.
Shio. Yeah.
And then the next question is from David, who's asking, how long do you keep the veg in the shio koji? Will this pickle keep for a while, or should it be consumed quickly?
Pretty quickly. I wouldn't. It also depends on the structure of your vegetable. If you're doing more of a root vegetable, like a carrot or something like that, those can hold up a little bit longer, I would say for a couple weeks, versus a more of a water-based vegetable like a cucumber or summer squash or something like that. Those I would probably consume within about like 3 to 4 days. So they'll start to break down really fast.
I gotcha. Okay. And then the next question is, do the vegetables have to be completely submerged in shio koji or amazake, or just seasoning and letting it pickle will that do?
Yeah, that's totally fine. You can treat it like a marinade, essentially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Great. And then
a quick pickle.
Gotcha. Okay. Aaron's wondering if there's a preferred way to store the vegetables after they're submerged in the brine, or after they're finished being submerged in the brine.
Well, we have a vacuum pack sealer here, so that's essentially like, the best way to hold them, because they're not getting exposed to a bunch of oxygen. But I mean, plastic bags at home, if you try and seal them and take out as much of the air as possible and keep them in the fridge, that'll help and be probably the best way.
Okay, great. Let's see. So the next question is about the sagohachi pickles. Once you chill the pickle bed in the fridge, are the vegetables added and allowed to ferment at room temperature for the 3 to 5 days?
Yes. Yeah, you can take it out. But I wouldn't, depending on your temperature, like your temperature at home, I wouldn't go past the 5 days because it'll start to go sour. It'll have more of a sour taste to it, unless that's what you want, and that's totally cool. But you have to remember, the longer you keep it out, it's going to want to convert sugars, the starches, into sugars and then alcohol. So I would recommend after that first time, like just pickling them in the bed in the fridge.
Gotcha. Okay, so the next question is from Aaron, who's wondering if you can share the making process for the milk bread miso.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember it off the top of my head. I made it like a year and a half ago. But with those, with that type of old, like I wanted it to be an older, like 2-year miso. I typically do like equal parts of my base and koji, and then about I think it's like a 12% salt, 12 to 15, something like that. I think. I don't remember correct, like right off the top of my head, but I can, if they message me or something, I can always share it on online, so I can have that.
Okay,
available.
Great. And then maybe we'll reach out and share it in the Slack channel. We have a recipes section that we're going to get up and running.
Perfect. Yeah, totally. I can do that. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Great. And then the next question is from Desi, who's wondering if you choose to pickle the miso zuke, do you remove the pickle and store, then refrigerated? What's the shelf life of the pickles at that point?
Yeah, so you remove it from the bed. Again, I think it kind of just depends on the structure of the vegetable. So if you're doing something like a cucumber, it's going to be less than a week. But if you have something hardier, like example, carrots, those can hold up, or daikon or anything like that, for, longer, like a week and a half or so.
Gotcha.
To 2 weeks.
And it looks like some folks helped out with this next question, but perhaps we can just confirm it, which was the ratios of the kazuzuki bed.
Right. Yeah. So that was the 10. Excuse me. Sorry. The 10 part kasu. Sorry. 3-part sugar and then 1 part salt.
Okay, so Matthew, you had it exactly right. And then there's a comment actually following up on that and said, "Don't skip the sugar. I made that mistake in the last batch, and it never mellowed out the booziness or salt." So
yeah, it's pretty key. Yeah, these, I wish you guys could taste these. These chilies, I tasted one earlier, and yeah, it's totally mellow. It's not like spicy hot, like hurts your mouth. You just get this intense, like the really intense, like chili flavor that it's imparting, and not just, I didn't get any spice at all. It was just really, really nice and mellow.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so the next question is from Brandon, who's asking, what's the texture of the amazake supposed to be like post blending? He hasn't had the chance to see amazake not made by himself, so he's not sure if his is correct.
Okay, so if you're just doing like a sweet amazake that has the 1 part starch, 1 part koji, and then 2 parts water, that's going to be more of a thick, like porridge, like consistency. If you're going for more of the sour amazake, that's going to be more loose, because you're adding, at the beginning of the process, you're adding double of the water. So it'd still be 1 part starch or rice to 1 part koji, but 4 parts water, and a longer fermenting time.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so here's a question from David, who says, it's not, and I know this is Koji-Con, but do you make any pickling beds that don't involve a koji related ingredient?
I do, actually. I have one. Like, I can show you right now. This is awesome. Yay.
Oh, good.
So this is actually a pickling bed that I made just of fresh turmeric, tons of garlic, a little bit of onion, toasted sesame, salt, and that's pretty much it. It's sort of like a paste, like sort of like a salsa kind of thing, but it smells incredible. It's super garlicky and it's turmeric and but yeah, I created this like back in December, and I have turnip. I don't know if you can see them, but there's turnips in here that have been going since December, and I just tried one today, and they still held up their texture, and they're nice and acidic, and you get the turmeric and the garlic, and they're just really good. So yeah, you can make pickling beds out without using koji.
Gotcha. That was a good question. Okay, so Aaron asks, do you refrigerate the beds if they are empty and waiting for new? Or do you refrigerate the beds if they're empty and waiting for new veggie friends? Correct. So is that
Yes.
that's what we do?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, correct.
And they only live at room temperature while they're working, or while the vegetables are in there fermenting.
Right. And I mean, you can also pickle them in the refrigerator as well. Just know that it's going to take a longer time because
Okay.
you know it's the colder temperature is going to slow down the fermentation. So if you're busy that week and you don't want to have to remember to put something back into the fridge or whatever, you can totally just pickle them in the fridge, and that's totally fine. It'll work.
Perfect. And how many times can you use each type of bed?
With the misozuke, again, you want to make sure that you're salting your veg and pressing them, or at least salting them a few hours and rinsing them before. And you want to dry them before you put them in the bed, because you don't want it to be too watery. Because introducing that new water into the pickling bed could cause some unwanted pathogens in there, and it could ruin the bed. So it's really important that you do that. But with misozuke beds, I would probably say you can use them about 3 to 4 times if you're really taking care of them.
Great.
And then the kasu, I would probably say about 2, maybe 3, but 2. And then you can, like I said, just as an idea, you can dehydrate it, and it'll have all of the flavors that it took on from whatever you pickled. And it'll be nice, like seasoning that way.
Great. And then Kat is asking that she says, my nuka bed is starting to smell a bit sulfuric. How can I balance this? It's not kept in the fridge.
Oh, the nuka bed. Oh man. Well, I guess I have other questions. Like, what is she feeding it? Because I know, like, if you feed it a lot of radish and things like that, stuff can go sour. Gosh, I know the answer to this. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on it. I know how to fix it, but I can't remember right now. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. If you remember, maybe the Slack is always there for the follow-ups, which is great. Okay, so Maria is wondering, all the long-term pickles should be fermented at room temperature. That's a question. And she says, or at 140 Fahrenheit for 10 hours. She's kind of wondering if that's correct.
The long-term enhancement pickles, which would be the miso and the kasu, those will be at room temp.
Okay, gotcha.
The 140 part only comes into play whenever you're actually making like the amazake or making the sagahache beds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And then Corey wants to know, I love, this is like rapid fire question and answer tonight. It's great. It's wonderful.
Putting me under the ringer here.
I know. Coming. Corey wants to know, are there any vegetables that you would recommend not fermenting with these applications, either for safety, flavor, or textural reasons?
Let me think. There's some greens that you can't really, okay. I mean, like turnip greens and everything like that, those work really well. I still haven't had a successful kale ferment. That has just always been beyond funky and slimy.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know, but like mustard greens, turnip greens, things like that, those all turn out fine. It's just something in kale that, it's not good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a re-ask here. When salting and pressing the pickles, do you lightly salt the veggies or do you use a weight percentage of salt?
I usually do between like a 1% and 2%. When I salt, and then again, you're gonna rinse the veg too once they've been pressed, and then dry them. So some of that solidity kind of goes away. But also a good thing to remember when you're doing that is you're concentrating like the flavor of that vegetable. You're with adding and pressing. Adding the salt and pressing it, you're extracting some of the liquid from that vegetable. And so the vegetable that you have that you're about to pickle is going to be super concentrated. You're going to get that flavor and it's going to come through really strong. Okay.
And a follow-up from Maria about those long-term pickles at room temp. How long should you ferment them?
I mean, with the Kasazuke, I think it's really up. You can check it and it's up to your preference, but I tend to, I've had Kasazuke go for about a year and a half before. I staged over at the Cultured Pickle Shop out in Berkeley, California, and they just have like these huge drums of Kasazuke vegetables. And that was the first time that I had tasted off like a mirin off of a jalapeno Kasazuke bed that they've had. But they let theirs go like at least like 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Okay. It just like really mellows out. I think the longer you keep it in there, it gets better and better. So.
Gotcha. Well, I think we actually made it to the end of the list, and I had a question for you, which is hoping you would share a little bit about native ferments and what this is and sort of where you're taking it.
Oh, okay, cool. So Native Ferments is a company that I've started here in Texas and focused on supporting local farms here. So all the produce and everything that I'll use in my ferments that I'm selling and pickles and condiments and things like that are all sourced here. So I just want to be able to support the local farmers and their hard work. I'll also be providing, live Zoom workshops that'll cover a wide spectrum of fermentation. From there'll be some tsukemono demonstrations. There'll be, everything from the beginning of lacto fermentation to, misos and, making your own nuka bed and things like that. And then, I'm just really excited to share fermentation knowledge and build that community like, Rich and Jeremy have here with Koji. It's just kind of like, why don't I just like share knowledge and people be really excited about it. So yeah.
Amazing. And will you be selling your ferments just locally, or will people be able to get them cross country?
So the website actually launches tomorrow. And the first one.
Can I put that up there? Okay.
Yeah. So it's nativefermentstx.com.
Okay.
And there you'll be able, well, the pickles are being sold locally for right now, but eventually it'll be out of state as well.
Okay.
And then we'll have a calendar on there that shows any upcoming workshops that you can sign up for, and it'll all be live Zoom workshops and with the Q&A session at the end.
That's amazing. And then I know you are also on Instagram there. It's Native Ferments TX as well, or is there anything else in that at?
Yeah, so Native Ferments _TX.
_TX. I just want to put that up as well. That's exciting. I can't believe it's launching tomorrow.
Yeah. I know. I have so much to do when I get home. Yeah, it's going to be busy.
No rest for the weary. That's amazing. I think we are, let me just make sure there's no other questions. Oh, one more question. Okay. Can you replace the sake lease on the katsuzuke for something else?
I've never tried that, so maybe. Why not? I can try.
That's another I wonder if. Yeah. Okay, great. And then Erin wants to know if you're going to be doing any of the workshops live once we get to a post-COVID world.
Oh yeah, I'm doing them live now. Just with social distancing and things like that. If you just email info@nativeferments.com, we can kind of I'll kind of cater the in-house workshop for that group, kind of get a feel of what they're wanting. So
okay, yeah, I'm going to put that email as well, so everybody has that. info@nativeferments.com. Well, Jessica, thank you so much. I really can't express how much gratitude we have for you working this into your very, very busy schedule. And I know it was a tough time to schedule it in, especially with this big launch tomorrow and everything else. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I had a good time. Thank you so much.
This is really wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
See you again tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Thanks.